Excellent. Okay, so I'm an occupational therapist, everyone, and in the interest of accessibility for this virtual presentation, I am a white middle-aged woman with a bit longer than shoulder length, light blondish hair, and I'm wearing a copper-colored sweater with black stripes in it. And in my uploaded slides, any non-decorative images have alt text attached to them that you can access, and any images that I've included are only really there to support the narrative of my presentation. So I'm very excited to be sharing this didactic with you today, and it is entitled, What is Your Interoceptive Awareness? And we're going to begin to explore our own interoceptive awarenesses with a strong consideration to trauma responsiveness. So I have all of my resources listed in my last several slides. So you can access them and explore them at your leisure. I'm sure you'll want to do it over this holiday season with all of your extra time. And I just wanted to say up front that the vast majority of the information I'll be using and talking about today has been researched and developed by an occupational therapist named Kelly Mahler. So I've credited her right on my first slide. And I thank you all for joining today. And I encourage you to engage at your comfort level. It's going to be a very different type of didactic. So if you haven't eaten your lunch yet, just hold off for a couple of seconds. And we're going to participate in some activities where we're going to be mindfully considering our own interoception. And so you can answer the questions with anonymity. We are using polls for our responses. So let's proceed with our agenda for today. So we are going to be reviewing the basics of sensory processing, including interoception. And we are going to do the basics of interoception. We're going to consider interoceptive awareness through trauma responsive lens. And then we're going to engage in several focused to different body parts and answer questions if we feel comfortable. And then if time permits, I'll go through some of my reference slides at the end. So I know this is lunchtime for most of us, and one of the areas we're going to focus on is the stomach. So before you take your first bite, if you haven't already, and before we talk about interoception, I thought we could engage in some deep breathing together using my trusty Hoverman spear to help us kind of mindfully. I don't have the best clear messages from my stomach personally. So I need to really focus. So let's do some deep breathing together and then focus on what your stomach feels like right now. So we're going to smell the flowers as the spear expands and blow out the candles as it contracts. Sorry. One more. And then kind of focus in on your stomach, how it feels at present, and kind of file that away if you could. So I went through our agenda. What we won't be focusing on, because time just doesn't allow, is a real thorough covering of the topics of sensory and interoceptive awareness and how specifically to improve interoceptive awareness, especially in learners who have a myriad of really unique needs. So basically, what I hope we all get out of this is just a brief experiential session where we're going to cover these basics and then give us all a snapshot of what our own interoception is, with some links for you to be able to take a deeper dive if you want to. So I'm going to really quickly discuss our sensory systems. There's a lot of information out there, and I did want to let you know about a really good resource. It's a new website from O'Callaghan, and it's called the Navigation Essentials. It's linked here, and it's information in the form of 9 toolkits, and all of the topics are developed and relevant to people who support multi-system youth. So one of the toolkits is a sensory toolkit with a focus on interoception. And I'm going to use some of that information today. So our external senses and sensory processing. I think most of us are aware of these five external senses of smell and sight and sound and taste and touch. And we all receive information from those senses if they are active for us via our nerves and our spinal cord. And then our brains give us information and feedback about the world around us, helping us to do all the things that we need to do every day. And I think fewer of us are aware of our internal senses. And those are first of all, the vestibular sense, the receptors are in our inner ear. And it's active whenever we move our head, and it gives us a sense of movement and balance. And then our proprioceptive sense, the receptors for that are in our joints and our muscles. And that sense tells us about our body and body part position. And then finally, our main topic today is interoception. And that's the sense of how our body feels. And this concept of interoception has really only been in the literature since 2002, when a neuroscientist, Dr. Bud Craig, was the first to show that humans had this sense of how our bodies feel. And he labeled it interoception. And he showed that there are three main parts to the human interoceptive system. First of all, there are small receptors located inside and outside of our body. And then there's a communication pathway, which is our spinal cord. And then there are two areas of the brain where this information is all processed. And they're called the insula. And they are deep within the lateral sulci of our brains on both sides. If your fingers are laser pointers and you put them in your ear canals, deep within your brain, you're pointing to where the insula reside. Kelly Mahler then, and of course there are other people that have done research, but Kelly Mahler is the occupational therapist that I referenced on the front slide, who has been most instrumental in doing research and practice to translate the interoceptive science into practice. So I encourage you to follow the links that I have all over your slide deck if you download it. And there are quite a few short videos, but I just wanted to kind of summarize Kelly's statements about interoception, that interoceptive differences are very common in all of us. So what my feeling of anxiousness is likely really different than yours. What my feelings of hunger are likely different than yours. Secondly, that people with neurodivergence tend to have even greater interoceptive differences. And finally, there is a lot of research that suggests that if you have experienced trauma, you also experience an interoception difference. So the interoceptive process, we get information from inside and outside our body parts. So from outside body parts, we get information that is distinct from the information that those five outside or external senses provide us. So for example, if our vision is intact, our eyes see. We receive information from them and it gives us feedback so that we're able to watch this didactic and read and find stuff that's lost and drive and avoid cars. But our eyes can also feel through our interoceptive sense. They can feel itchy or watery or blurry or dry. And all of our other outside body parts listed on the slide have a sense of feeling too. So our nose, our mouth, our ears, our feet, our hands, and our skin, we can get tactile information from our skin, but our skin can also feel wet or dry or itchy or cold or sweaty or oily. Then we also get interoceptive information from those inside body parts. So from our muscles, our heart, lungs, our bladder, and that information can guide us to take care of ourselves. So from our stomach, for example, we can get interoceptive information like growling, tingly, fullness, tightness, heaviness, some of the things that you maybe were thinking about when we mindfully considered our stomach a few moments ago. And all of that can give us clues about how we're feeling and what we should do about it. And then, of course, our brain can also give us interoceptive information, such as feelings of focus or dizziness and distraction and things like that. So interoceptive awareness then is absolutely essential for independent self-regulation. and management of our health and our well-being. You have to feel your feelings to connect them to an emotion and then make a needed change. And I've listened, and yet again, very recently when I participated with Ocalicon 2025, to the lived experiences of adults with interoceptive differences. And they report that while they can commit myriads of coping strategies to memory, they have not been able to use them in a moment of dysregulation because they did not have the interoceptive awareness to connect that feeling to this abstract emotion and then choose a needed strategy that they had learned. So without interoceptive awareness, Mahler and others state that the use of and instruction in things like teaching emotion words, teaching coping strategies, it is not well matched to support the individual unless they have that awareness. So interoception helps us to feel our emotions, two different types of emotions. The first is a homeostatic or a body state emotion. So these help us fulfill all those basic body needs like sensory overwhelm or illness or needing to poo or pee or sexual arousal, hunger, fullness, thirst, sleepiness, physical exhaustion, just to name some. And then the second type of emotion that interoception helps us to feel is our affective emotions. So those we typically consider as emotions, happiness and sadness and excitement and security and calmness. And in the interest of time, I'm skipping over these next two slides to say that the interoceptive process has three main steps. The first is noticing the body signals and the ability to notice them. The second is connecting that body signal to an emotion. And finally, the third step is action, regulating that body signal with an action. You have to be able to know how we feel, how you feel, in order to choose a coping strategy that's helpful. And the first step is noticing. So we're going to, with the rest of our time, start our own mindful interoceptive journey. But first, before we proceed, I want to make sure that we're mindful that we all have different connections to our bodies. And sometimes these are more intense and sometimes they're more muted. So for all these activities that I'm going to be presenting today, please know that you're going to choose if you want to. I encourage you to engage in them, but you choose if you want to do it or not. Proceed only with your comfort level. No, also there are really no right and wrong answers, and there's no judgment. We really all have different feelings, and our goals are to be curious and to keep everyone safe. So if at any time anything feels overwhelming to you or upsetting, do what you need to do to stay safe. Trauma does alter body awareness. So anytime you're looking at building your body awareness, it should be done slowly and safely. So with that as our caveat, we're going to do some quick focused experiments from Kelly Mahler's interoception activity cards, which I've used in small group with students. So the first one is for our eyes, and this will be poll number 3. But let's do the experiment. So what we're going to do is, without turning your head at all, you're going to look sharply to one side for a count. I'll participate, but we'll count to 10. And then you're going to say how it makes your eyes feel if you want to. So straight ahead, eyes to the side. Okay. And then a poll should drop down that have these possible eye feels. And if you didn't feel any of these, you felt something else, go ahead and respond with the last choice, which is something else. And I have to tell you, while we're waiting for everybody else to respond that wants to, achy wasn't even on the list that I put together from Mahler's information. But that's how my eyes feel every time I do it, kind of achy and too much. Um, so I added it, and it's been my experience that kids I've worked with have always had different interoceptive feels to tell me about. So, do we want to share? Look at all the different responses that we have, which is why we're doing this. It really proves the point. Can everyone else see the responses? Okay. Yeah, it blows me away. All right. So, we can end that poll, and I'm going to move to the next slide. Is that all right to do, Jamie and Sandy? Yep. Okay, thanks. All right. So, I'm going to close that real quick. So, how do we improve interoceptive awareness? I told you we weren't going to talk about that a lot, but I'm doing it a little. Research shows that mindfully noticing our body signals can improve interoceptive awareness in as short as 8 weeks. And I'm an N of one who's been really looking at my interoception and practicing a lot over the last 3 weeks as I've been prepping. And I would say I'm getting a little better at some of it. So, it's true, um, for an N of one anyway, but the research does support that. So we're going to get a little baseline for ourselves of the body state feeling of hunger, because those are the two focused experiments we're going to do for our last activity together. So you're going to using this is polls 4, 5, and 6. They're all in one poll for you, and your answer key is yes, this happens to me quite often, or it happens to you, and this rarely happens to me. And I'm going to give you 3 questions. So the first is, I can forget to eat even after long periods of time. So you answer, and I actually would have to answer yes to that. And then the second question is, I miss early signals of hunger and end up painfully starving or hangry. I have a loved one who experiences that. I don't think he'd mind if I disclose that to you all. He needs a t-shirt that says, I'm sorry for what I said when I was hangry. And then the third, someone needs to remind me to eat or I might forget. So if any of us are having whys, that means the body signals telling us that we're hungry might be unclear for us. And of course, there are next steps of things to do for that we don't have time, but there is a lot of information out there to be able to improve it. So we can stop that poll, but can everyone see the result? I mean, seriously. It it can be very, interoception is just very different for everyone, and we can all have unclear info from our different body senses. So we're going to engage now in 2 focused experiments. So the next one is poll 7. We're going to notice or tune into our own body state of our stomach. And the first one is, if you're not sitting, sit in a chair and put your hand on your abdomen. Take a really deep breath in, filling your belly with air, and hold it for 10 seconds. And then after you blow it out, focus on your stomach. And then you can answer that poll number 7, I think it was. So lots of different responses. And we're real close to our noon time. So I am going to move on to the next focus experiment. And this is either think about eating your favorite food or take a bite of your lunch and then focus on your stomach. And I'm sorry I'm making you do all these things that are supposed to be done slowly and mindfully, quickly. So try to focus on your stomach as you're eating. And I really hope I'm not crunching too loudly for all of you. And we can end 7 and start poll number 8 now. And as those results are coming in, I think we're all starting to see through all of these that we all have very different interoceptive experiences, but truly that mindful connections to our bodies can expand our interoceptive awareness in meaningful ways. And that doing this in steady increments can help folks with interoceptive differences, especially those impacted with trauma. And my last slides are all just, I list 2 different um, links for an online interoceptive assessment. And then for Kelly Mahler's comprehensive assessment of interoceptive awareness. And then my resources. And then if you want to take a deeper dive, these links on your very last slide are helpful. And the very last one is registration for the upcoming Feeling the Feels. It's an 8-week session with Kelly Mahler through O'Callaghan. So thanks so much for participating, everyone. I really, really appreciate it. And it was great fun. And I don't know that we have time, but if there is any time, I'm happy to answer questions.